There's a great sort of schedule that we have of understanding the whole day ahead of this and what these astronauts are doing right now. So just at about 2:53 today, the return trajectory correction 3 burn occurred. So they're on track for this splashdown. Take us through what happens right before that splashdown, and really specifically, Sana, focus on that reentry into Earth's atmosphere, because that's a really dramatic part.
Right. Totally. Yeah. So at around 7:30 p.m., the Orion crew capsule, this is the capsule that has taken them around the moon, will separate from a service module. And that will really kick off the process of reentry. And the process of reentering the Earth's atmosphere, it's very quick. It's 13 minutes. So at 7:53, they will begin entering the Earth's atmosphere. And like you said, the Orion capsule will have to endure some really fiery temperatures as it goes through the Earth's atmosphere. And what's really key in that is the heat shield, which is a part of the spacecraft that is built to endure those temperatures and keep the crew inside safe. And then, following the entry into the atmosphere, there will be parachutes that deploy to slow down Orion's speed as it, splashes down off the coast of California in the Pacific Ocean. And then once that happens, once the Orion crew is, safely in the water, there will be both Navy personnel and NASA personnel who will help make sure the crew's all right and eventually, place them on a ship to return home.
So as you mentioned, really, really hot temperatures. We're talking like 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit through the plunge. The heat shield has to work. That's what your colleague Lauren Grush writes. It must work to bring the crew home. There's no backup option. Just talk a little bit more about that. How concerned do we have to be about the astronauts' safety, particularly when there's no backup option?
Yeah. So, it is the mechanism that will protect them from their reentry to Earth's atmosphere. As you mentioned, there's no other mechanism in place to do that. During the first Artemis mission, which was an uncrewed mission, the Orion capsule re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, and it did what's called a skip re-entry. And so during this type of re-entry, the Orion capsule actually spends more time in these fiery temperatures just because of kind of the angle at which it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. And so during that re-entry, we actually saw some impact to Orion's heat shield, and parts of it kind of broke off more than were expected. And so that has raised concern for some people about this re-entry and, the safety of the astronauts. But Lockheed Martin has investigated it. They said with this new type of reentry that they are trying around this time, in which the exposure to temperatures is for less time, those fiery hot temperatures is for less time, that they are confident that it will work, and everyone will be safe. And NASA has put a lot of confidence as well. They've undergone a lot of testing. So, there's always uncertainty with these types of things. But NASA and their partners have undergone a lot of testing and experimentation. So, we have confidence that hopefully it will be okay.
Did they have to reformulate the heat shield at all, or use a new version of the heat shield on this particular Orion spacecraft versus Artemis I, after those larger chunks than expected did disappear during that Earth reentry?
So this heat shield will be similar, the same to the heat shield used on Artemis I. They did actually create a new heat shield for Artemis III and beyond, but this one kind of was already in production by the time Artemis I had wrapped up. But they are saying that because they're trying this new type of reentry, it's not as much of an issue. So yeah.
Because it won't be in that period of extreme temperatures for as long as Artemis I was.
Exactly.
Okay, so then let's say, if everything goes according to plan, it goes through that reentry period, and then it slows down thanks to parachutes.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
How long then until it splashes down off the coast of San Diego?
It's It's super quick. The entire process from re-entering to splashing down is 13 minutes. So I don't know the specific time, but it's probably less than 10.
Okay.
So yeah, this whole process will unfold very, very quickly.
And then tell us about the plans for the splashdown. What happens then? How do the astronauts exit the capsule? Sorry if that's a basic question for...
No,
These things don't happen very often.
You got to do it.
No, yeah. So first, what will happen is that divers will actually go and kind of like investigate and approach the Orion capsule as it's in the water, just to make sure everything looks okay. And then, they will eventually end up, bringing the Orion capsule onto a ship, and they will, let the astronauts exit from there. And it's like a military vessel that is, stationed out there to help them. And then from there, they will be, brought back to Johnson Space Center. Eventually, they'll come back to shore, and then they'll be flown to Johnson Space Center.
So, Sana, what comes next and for Artemis III? And after, these astronauts arrive home safely, we get the data and the learnings that they were able to bring to us from space. What do we do with that information, and how does it inform the next Artemis missions?
Yeah, totally. So this was a really key test for the next Artemis missions because it was the first crewed flight of the Artemis program. So, the crew of 4 astronauts was really testing out the life support systems to make sure that, when we go to the moon for a landing, that the astronauts will be safe and that Orion is capable of taking astronauts to the vicinity of the moon safely. So in the next mission, which will happen in 2027, they will essentially use the SLS rocket to practice docking with a lunar lander. And both SpaceX and Blue Origin have contracts to develop lunar landers. So we'll see how that unfolds. And that will be, another precursor mission before the planned moon landing in 2028, where the SLS rocket will actually dock with one of these landers in lunar orbit, and then they will, place the astronauts on the moon.
And Sana, if we could zoom out, remind us what did the mission discover about this dark side of the moon? Of course, this was the first time that humans had seen it. What were the key takeaways that we're now learning about?
Right. Yeah. So it's actually really interesting. Like when the Apollo astronauts launched, they prioritized launching when the near side of the moon was illuminated. The near side is like the side that we see. And so this was really the first time that astronauts were able to see the far side of the moon illuminated, because when Apollo astronauts orbited the moon, it was always the other side of the moon that they were able to see the illumination on. So they were able to lay eyes on, lunar features that had never been seen before by humans. And so they were making a lot of scientific observations on, NASA's live coverage, but I think that there are many more photos, scientific observations that they will bring home with the Orion crew capsule that will really help us determine, lunar science, future landing sites, and then also they experienced an eclipse as well. So, photos of that and all the science around that and observations.
Sana, apart from everybody who's been so excited about this mission and getting to witness this and really experience at least kind of what these astronauts are getting to experience by them sharing this stuff with us in real time, who are the winners of this? We're Bloomberg, we cover the companies. Who are the winners of this mission?
Yeah, totally. So I would say that this is a really big win for Boeing, because Boeing develops the SLS rocket that propelled the astronauts into space. Northrop Grumman and L3 Harris also, are on contract for the boosters and the engines of that rocket. So also a win for them as well. Lockheed Martin, we'll see with this reentry how the Orion capsule does. I don't want to deem it a success yet, just because the astronauts are not safely home yet. But I think overall we could say, if and when this mission turns out to be successful, it will be a success for these kind of storied aerospace, large government contractors. And then when Artemis III rolls around and SpaceX and Blue Origin come into the folds, we're going to see how those newer space companies perform.